I'm Edward October. The sound you hear is wind-swept leaves. This is the start of Octoberpod's Halloween Potluck. I've invited some guests over tonight, old friends of the show and new, and we've all brought covered dishes filled with tricks, treats, and a few scares. Come inside, won't you? Hallows Even, or Halloween, being the eve or vigil of All Hallows, or All Saints' Day, is the last night of October. On this night there should be nothing but laughter, fun, and mystery. It is the night when fairies dance, ghosts, witches, and mischief-making devils wander around. It is the night when all sorts of charms and spells are invoked for prying into the future by all young folk, and sometimes by folk who are not quite so young. In getting up a Halloween party, everything should be made as mysterious as possible. The room or rooms in which most of the games are to be played should be decorated as grotesquely as possible, with jack-o'-lanterns made up from apples, cucumbers, squash, and, of course, pumpkins. Jack-o'-lanterns should be placed around on tables, mantels, corners, etc. A skull and crossbones placed over the door entering the house would be very appropriate. The hall should be in total darkness, except for the light coming from the jack-o'-lanterns of all shapes and sizes in various places throughout the house. The dining room should be decorated with autumn leaves, goldenrod, yellow chrysanthemums, and strings of cranberries. For a table centerpiece, a large pumpkin could be used with the top cut off and partly filled with water, in which a large bunch of yellow chrysanthemums or goldenrod could be placed. The dining room should also be in total darkness, except for the light given by the jack-o'-lanterns, until the guests are seated, at which point they should unmask. Speaking of dinner parties, we're joined tonight by famed hostess Anna, star of YouTube's retro recipe channel, Cooking the Books. Anna is here to prepare a very special treat for us.
Today, I'm going to be preparing ghost cake with flaming eyes. And get ready for this photo. You guys, I'm so excited about this cake. I never made this cake growing up. Perfect timing. It's Halloween. We got a spooky cake. We're gonna have this for dessert, and I'm super excited about it. In order to make your ghost cake with flaming eyes, you are going to need 1 package of yellow cake mix with pudding. Betty Crocker, of course. In the interest of saving time, I did end up baking this and cooling it ahead of time. You just bake it according to package directions in a 9x13 pan. You're also going to need 2 sugar cubes, a teaspoon of lemon extract, and some black licorice string, which I couldn't find. What I ended up getting is some pull and peel, so my ghost is just going to be wearing lipstick this season. The last ingredient, a package of fluffy white frosting mix. I have run into this before. I cannot find these frosting mixes in store. I did find some online, but it was something like I would have to purchase 12 boxes for $50. I didn't really want to do that. Great deal, but I'm not going to use 12 packages of fluffy white frosting mix. I did end up finding on the Betty Crocker website a recipe for fluffy white frosting. It is an egg white based icing. A little bit nervous about them. It should be fine, but there's also going to be some boiling sugar that I have to stream into them, so
We'll check back on Anna throughout the night to see how her cake is coming along. After the supper is over at your Halloween party, and while the guests are still seated, a splendid idea would be to extinguish the lights and to have one or more of the partygoers tell ghost stories.
When I was 10, we lived in a house in Holland, PA, a little town in Bucks County. It's an old part of the country. The air is thick with history everywhere you go. The house was a multi-story brick home with dark wood accents throughout. It was about 100 years old. In this house, there was a mother-in-law's suite. I had never known of such a thing and was immensely overjoyed when I found out it was like a studio apartment located inside the house. There was a little kitchenette area with a sink, stove and oven, a tiny couch for visitors, even a brass-framed bed. I was so young, I honestly thought it was made of gold. And oh, how my parents laughed at that one. The furniture in this room had all come with the house, which was not something I thought of before, but definitely after. I wanted to live in this room, but my parents said it wasn't fair for any of us 3 children to get that room. It was to be our playroom that we shared. Luckily for me, my older sister was too old for playing with toys, and my brother was more interested in Nintendo. So, the mother-in-law's suite became my place. Ever since I was a child, I've been sensitive. Sensitive to the presence of spirits and other entities. I was used to being alone in a room, yet still hearing an unseen mouth whispering my name. This was the sort of thing that was always happening to me. Always. Except for those times when I was playing in that playroom, the mother-in-law suite. It was unusually quiet in there. As a child, I just enjoyed the quiet solitude. When you have my gift, that is something you just don't get. My favorite way to play in that room was to have tea time. I had a special tea set for playing. It was white with pastel flowers and gold accents on the rims, lids, and handles of the dishes. The set seemed so grown up to me. I loved pretending I was hosting a ladies' tea party with the finest ladies around, all decked out in white lace with those little gloves on. You know the kind. They make no sense to us now, but in the past were all the rage for dainty girls and fine women. That's what I was doing the time I met her. I was in my nightgown. It was Saturday evening in the fall. The wind outside was perfectly crisp, like the apples in our cider. Fallen leaves caught the wind with their brittle edges and skittered against the windows of our house, sounding off a countdown to winter. It was the perfect weather for a tea party, I suppose. And with that thought, spurred on by the weather outside, I made my way down to my apartment. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary as I set up my tea party. I gathered the cups and saucers, setting them where they belonged on the table. I pretended that the teapot had started whistling and said, "Tea's on, ladies." Then I heard a brittle voice say, "Oh, lovely." In response to me, I tensed up. My back was to the bed, and it sounded like the voice had come from behind me. I was used to hearing things, mind you, that are nowhere to be seen, but this was different. This was a voice I hadn't heard before. This was clearly spoken. This was to me, not just around me. This was my quiet place. Nothing ever talked to me in here that I couldn't see. But not only could I hear her, I felt her now. She was behind me, sitting on the bed. I felt her eyes on me as I lifted the pot off the stove and carried it to the table. I kept my back to the bed. I was terrified to look behind me. I knew this must have been her apartment, not mine. I kept moving through my routine. I poured tea in each cup, carefully, slowly, so as not to spill. I was okay as long as I kept moving. I got to the third cup, the one in front of the bed.
Just a wee bit more, dear. I'm terribly cold,
she said to me as I poured the water into her cup. So I poured a little more. She sighed gratefully behind me. She was ready to warm her cold bones with my hot tea. Except, this was cold water, and she wasn't here. Not with her bones, anyway. I offered my guests cookies and biscuits in a less shaky voice than I expected. This gave me some much-needed courage as I heard a response.
Oh, dearie, I would love a biscuit. It's been so long, and I'm so hungry.
Her old voice trailed off, sounding forlorn. Perhaps she knew she was dead. With clammy hands and sharp little breaths that puffed out like the beating of butterfly wings, I reached out and grabbed a biscuit. I could still feel her eyes on me, heard her breath wheeze in and out from her frail chest, like wind fluttering on lace curtains. I steeled myself. I placed her biscuit on the saucer and spun around. And there was only the empty bed smiling at me. Nothing to be afraid of. She was just a little old lady who wasn't even here anymore. I never saw her, never heard her voice again after that day. But I could always feel her presence in that room, fluttering about like the wings of a butterfly.
Now here's an easy Halloween souvenir game. Suspend apples from strings in the doorway or from the ceiling at the proper height to be caught between the teeth. The first successful player wins a prize. These prizes should be Halloween souvenirs, like plastic spiders, rubber snakes, chattering teeth, whoopee cushions, finger cuffs, or wax vampire fangs. But before we get carried away, let's head back to the kitchen and see how Anna's ghost cake is coming along.
I know exactly what I'm doing. In medium bowl, beat egg whites with an electric mixer on high speed until stiff peaks form. I turned my back for like 1 second, and this is what happened. Holy cow. I don't make a lot of meringues, can you tell? It said to beat them for 10 minutes, but I guess that was, you're using a hand mixer. I think this is like almost where it needs to be. I hope I didn't like overdo it. Is this right? If this doesn't work for whatever reason, I do have a little bit of a backup plan, so this is not gonna work. I am not feeling very hopeful right now. I just wanted a festive ghost cake. You know what? Let's go. We're gonna do this. I don't like the look of this. I think this is bad. I think this is very bad. Oh no. That was wrong. That did not work. Oh no.
Good luck, Anna. Halloween is rich with many time-honored traditions, games, and rituals for divining the identity of one's true love. Here are a few. Where dwells my lover? Steal out unobserved at midnight, plucking a small lock of your own hair, then recite this rhyme. I pluck this lock of hair off my head, to tell whence comes the one I shall wed. Fly, silken hair, fly all the world round, until you reach the spot where my true love is found. Cast these hairs into the breeze. Whatever direction it is blown in is believed to be the location of your future matrimonial partner. There is also the ritual of the magic stairs. Walk backward down darkened stairs, holding a lighted candle above your head. Upon reaching the bottom, turn suddenly, and before you will stand the object of your heart's desire. And so the journey down the magic stairs shall end in lovers' meeting.
This one Halloween, I must have been around 14 because I couldn't drive yet. I got invited to my first party where the number of girls in attendance was something I'd be interested in. In particular, there was this one girl named Heidi who I had been crushing on all year. I'm not even sure she knew I existed, but everybody else knew about my crush on her. She was dressed as Cleopatra and she was luminous. I was dressed as Jason Voorhees. A good costume for parties like this because I could always slip off my hockey mask if any kissing needed to be done. The guys who were dressed up in zombie or werewolf makeup, they weren't so lucky. The party was being thrown by this kid a grade or two above me who lived with her dad in this old farmhouse. Her dad was a deer hunter, so there was taxidermy hanging from the walls in just about every single wood-paneled room. It was creepy. Anyway, her dad worked the third, and he'd be gone all night. And, as you might have guessed, kids started playing Truth or Dare and Spin the Bottle. At some point, I went in the kitchen for a slice of pizza, and a couple of the other girls there came up to me and said that Heidi wanted to play 7 Minutes in Heaven with me. If you never played it, 7 Minutes in Heaven is a game where you and someone of the opposite sex are put in a dark closet for 7 minutes with the assumption that you'd be making out with each other, no questions asked, for the whole time you're in there. I had my suspicions that I might be falling for a prank, but my love for Heidi was too strong. They led me to a walk-in closet, overstuffed with winter coats, told me Heidi was already waiting for me in there, and they shoved me in. There was no way to lock the closet from the outside, so someone sat against the door and blocked it with their weight. It was pitch black in there and smelled like dust and mothballs. I whispered Heidi's name, and then I felt her arms around me and her hair falling on the back of my neck. "I'm here," she whispered in my ear, and my whole body broke out in goosebumps. I felt her hands all over me, squeezing me tightly, sometimes painfully. She kept breathing, panting in my ear. It was weird, but I'm not gonna lie, I loved it. And then, someone flung the closet door open wide, flooding it with light. I saw that everybody at the party was huddled around the door, laughing at me with these big, stupid grins on their face. And to my shock, I saw that one of them was Heidi. I said, "Wait, if Heidi was out here the whole time, then who the hell was in the closet with me?" They all laughed harder and said, "No one was in there with me. That was the whole point of the prank." I turned on the closet light and searched around. Nothing but coats and shoes. My face must have turned pale because someone finally asked me what had happened. And I told them. They could tell by my expression that I wasn't putting them on. No one was laughing now. Heidi started sobbing uncontrollably. She cried so hard that she spent the rest of the party in the bathroom, throwing up.
My, it got chilly in here, didn't it? Well, I'm certain there's a cure for that in the kitchen. I wonder how the cake is coming along.
That's going to be fun to clean up. So I'm not going to list the individual amounts of ingredients for this icing. Like I said, I'm going to go ahead and just link it down below. I promise you this recipe is amazing. First, you add your cream cheese to the bowl, and then you just beat it a little bit until it is creamy. I did soften this for a little bit in the microwave. You don't want to go too crazy because you don't want it to melt. So next, you're going to add your powdered sugar and your vanilla. And then you're supposed to beat this on medium speed for about 2 minutes until the sugar and the cream cheese are all combined. Already, this looks so much better than the other one. I'm supposed to turn the mixer back on low, and then I'm gonna stream in my heavy cream. So now that I have all the heavy cream in there, I'm supposed to turn this up to high speed for 1 to 2 minutes until stiff peaks form. Here's the finished product. It's like not heavy. There was only 3/4 of a cup of confectioner sugar in this, so it's not like heavy or grainy or anything. It's so light, and it's like not overly sweet. So you've got that like nice mix. It's like a very somehow light but still rich icing with like the whipped cream and the cream cheese. So I can't say enough good things about this. Please go visit Simply Wendy. She has a great channel. She's an amazing baker. Thank you again, Wendy.
We've all heard the ritual of gazing into a mirror to summon Bloody Mary or some other malign spirit on Halloween. But there are other such games and rituals one can play with the aid of mirrors. For example, stand alone before a mirror. There, by the light of a candle, comb your hair. The face of your lover, be that lover alive or dead, will appear in the glass, peeping over your shoulder. There is also the ritual of the mirror and apple, which works best in houses or other locations known to be haunted. Stand in front of a mirror in a dimly lighted room and begin eating an apple. If the spirits in the home are friendly towards you, one will appear behind you, just over your right shoulder, and ask for a bite of the apple. If the spirits be unfriendly, none will appear, but the apple will be snatched from your hand with a violent rudeness.
In my hometown, when I was growing up, we didn't have Bloody Mary. I mean, that just wasn't a story anyone ever told. But we did have something similar. We had Carrie and Kathy. They call her Carrie and Kathy because, as a ghost, she kind of looks a bit like roadkill or rotten meat. Fun fact, one of Octoberpod's earliest episodes was inspired by this legend. Kathy's backstory is kind of stupid. She lived in a nice-ish house with her asshole parents, real corporate ladder climbers. The story goes that Kathy's birthday was either on Halloween or Friday the 13th. I could never keep it straight. Anyways, one year, her asshole parents forgot her birthday, her sweet 16. Kathy, who wasn't all there mentally, flew into a rage. She killed her whole family with her dad's shotgun and then slit her wrists with a razor. She bled out and died on the couch right next to her dead parents, but not before writing, "Happy fucking birthday to me" on the bathroom mirror, in her own blood. The house was abandoned, but it still stands, mostly, and everybody calls it the Happy Birthday House. Now, legend has it that if you go to the Happy Birthday House and look in that bathroom mirror and chant "Happy Birthday to me" 5 times, Carrie and Kathy will appear right behind you in the mirror and either kill you or drag you to hell. Allegedly. So, on Halloween night during our senior year, me and my friends thought it'd be a good idea to find the house and summon Kathy. The house was creepy AF and looked just the way you'd expect. It had 2 bathrooms, and the mirrors in both had been broken. However, kids had spray painted "Happy fucking birthday" on every wall of the house. At the time, I thought the story was a load of horse shit, so I volunteered to be the one to look in the mirror. We knew the mirrors in the house would be broken, so we brought our own. It was just past midnight, and there were no lights other than a weak flashlight we'd brought. I propped the mirror against the bathroom sink and said the words 5 times, and, of course, nothing happened. We all went home that night feeling a little foolish and a little disappointed, but very stoned. Oops, I guess I forgot to tell you that part. Weird things started to happen the next day. I got out of the shower and got the shock of my life when I saw the reflection of a girl standing right behind me in the bathroom mirror. Her skin was gray and her hair was matted, and She was looking at me with these black eyes filled with hate. And her face. Jesus Christ, I can't even describe it, but it looked like the personification of death and decay. I rolled around, but there was no one there. I saw her again the next day in the rearview mirror of my car as I was backing out of the driveway. She must have been close enough to touch my bumper. That night, I caught sight of her in a big mirror behind the dining room table. She was staring at me from the foyer at the bottom of the stairs. I saw her at least once every day for the next week. Each time she was a little farther away until the day she didn't appear at all. When I went home to college, she'd appear to me whenever I went home for holidays or between semesters. It got so bad that I started covering the mirrors in my room and bathroom. To this day, I still see her sometimes, and always whenever I visit my parents' house. It scares me every time. I don't think I'll ever get used to seeing her face.
It's times like these I can't shake the feeling that I'm being watched. Speaking of which, let's watch Anna's Halloween cake begin to take shape.
And we may have a lopsided ghost. I mean, let's be honest here. It's not going to be like bakery quality work, but that's not what I'm going for. I'm going for fun. Slide the cut corners down the sides to about the center of the cake. Sliding the cut corners down. My ghost is looking like Mothman or like a bat. It kind of looks like a bat. Turn the corners so the cut sides are up. Corners like that. Or like, oh my gosh, okay, I get it. That makes sense, because it's kind of like, hey, make the arms look as if they're reaching for you. Spooky. Okay, I get it now. I had to read that a few times, but I get it, and it's fun, and it's coming for ya. Might be a very sad ghost. As long as it tastes good, that's what matters, right? Kind of nervous about these little arms. Little frosting paws. I'm not winning prizes for this. The arms are like especially fiddly. I would suggest that if you are a kid and you want to make this, get some adult supervision, but just not this one. Like, don't get this adult to supervise you because it's not going to go very well.
Thanks, Anna. I can't wait to see the finished product. Shadowplay. Shadowplay makes for splendid party games at Halloween. Shadow Buff, for example, is a game specially suited for a large party. A white bedsheet or white tablecloth is first of all stretched across the room, and on a table behind it is placed a bright lamp. All the other lights in the room are then extinguished, and one of the players takes a seat upon a low stool midway between the lamp and the sheet. The other players endeavor to disguise themselves as much as possible by distorting their features, rumpling their hair, wearing wigs, false noses, etc., and pass one by one behind the player seated on the stool. The shadows are thus thrown upon the sheet. The aim of the seated player is to guess the identity of the shadows as they pass before him or her, and the aim of the others is to endeavor, by every means in their power, to keep from being recognized.
A few years ago, I was traveling alone on business, teaching a corporate ethics course for a bunch of our offices in the Deep South. I had a few days to spare while I was in Louisiana and decided to spend some time in New Orleans. I booked myself a room in one of the city's many historic hotels. I've been asked not to name it, though. The room was one level below the top floor. It had a great view and looked super comfy. After a long shower, I walked to the Garden District for dinner. I think that's the prettiest side of NOLA, far removed from the beads and the booze of Bourbon Street and just beautiful oak-shaded streets with historic homes all lined with intricate wrought iron gates and fences. Magical. When I got back to my room, my television was on, although I had thought I had turned it off. No big deal. I switched channels to a true crime documentary and set out the beignet I had brought back from the cafe for late night snacking. The ice bucket was dry, so I stepped out of the room to go fill it with fresh ice. When I stepped inside, it was dark and silent. Both the overhead light and the night side lamps were off, as was the TV. There had been rumbles of distant thunder all night, so I figured it was just a little power surge. I put the lights back on, turned the TV back on, but no channels were coming in. They were all blue screens. So I switched it off, turned to my beignet, and read a few chapters of a book before calling it a night. I turned off the overhead lights and left the bedside lamp on the lowest setting and readily fell asleep. I woke up in the middle of the night to the crash of thunder and lightning overhead. Since I was awake, I quickly used the restroom and then headed back to bed. In the short time I'd been out of it, all of the linens had been rolled off my bed and now lay on the floor at the base, including the fitted sheet, all rolled together, not simply thrown in layers. I was only half awake at this point, so I told myself that I must have done all of this when I was getting out of bed. Groggy as I was, it seemed plausible that I could have done that and not remembered. My TV was still off, my door was still closed and locked, and even the nightstand light was still on. I was frustrated because I certainly didn't feel like remaking a king-size bed in the middle of the night. But shy of any other good option, it appeared I would be, I painstakingly remade the bed, folded the heavy comforter at the bottom since I embarrassingly worked up a little bit of a sweat from the task, and laid under the sheets. At this point, I was awake enough to try the TV, but it wouldn't turn on. This was weird since my light was still on, as was my little alarm clock, but see above, whatever. I closed my eyes just long enough to doze when a strong fragrance startled me. It was so intense, it felt like it was in my nose and in my mouth. It was vaguely floral, but artificial and all but nauseating. I sat up with my nose wrinkled and cupped my hand over it, trying to figure out what it was and where it was coming from. And as I did, I watched the heavy folded comforter get pulled at a slight angle and fall completely off the foot of the bed. I immediately crawled after it and went as far as to extend a hand to try to grab it before it hit the ground. It was too late, as it was crumpled to the carpet, and from underneath, I saw long, golden brown curls stretched across the floor as well. I 100% raced backwards crab style to the top of the bed and plastered myself against the headboard, not breathing, still surrounded by that sickening smell, and seriously thought I might die from the unexpected sight. I didn't, but I nearly did again 1 second later when the thunder rolled and lightning flashed outside my window in the alley again. My light stayed on, thank God, but I did scream. There was one last small power surge. My light flickered but didn't go out, and my television turned on, to the same blue screen as before. But in the second the lamp and TV flickered, I swore I saw a shadow of a woman, hair down, dress, facing away from me just at the foot of the bed. After several minutes, the blue screen of the TV changed back to the cable footage, and I heard the rain slow, then stop. I leaned over to the other side of my bed, the presumably unhaunted side, and turned on that lamp too. It was 3 a.m, and I had the TV blaring and 2 lamps on, and that's how I stayed until about 6 a.m., too spooked to close my eyes.
All that talk of beignets is making me hungry. Let's see if Anna is ready to serve up that Halloween treat she's been working on.
So, I think we're kind of there, if you can see it. But now we're gonna do the fun part, and that is the eyes and the mouth. I think I'm gonna do like a little, oh, yeah. Okay, this is cute, So out of these eggshells, I have to choose the best ones. Oh my gosh, yes! This is the best part. Oh my gosh. So what you do next is you take 2 sugar cubes, 1 for each eye, you drop them in the eggshells, like this. So there's 2, there's 1 in each. Grab your lemon extract, and it says like a teaspoon. I'm not even gonna measure this because it's not for flavor at all. You're gonna put a little bit on each sugar cube, whoops. I might have gotten some on the cake. There's just gonna be a little bit of a lemony flavor on that piece. Here is the really fun part, and I hope this works. You're gonna light these on fire. That's where the flaming eyes come in. Okay, yes, it is on fire! I should have done this at night because I don't think you can see it, but you can smell that burning eggshell. I'm gonna replace that one. We did it, kind of. Oh no. I'll just let that go for now. So that's it. That's my ghost with flaming eyes. I can kind of see why maybe I didn't make this when I was a kid. Oh boy, those do not smell good. Okay, yep, that effect does not last long because it does start to singe.
Thank you, Anna. Save a piece for me. Folks, be sure to check out Anna's channel, Cooking the Books, on YouTube. If you enjoy retro cooking and entertaining as much as I do, you won't want to miss a single video. We'll place a link to her channel, as well as a link to her full-length ghost cake video in the description below. Well, the clock is about to strike 12, and All Saints' Day will be upon us. Thank you for joining us for our Halloween potluck. All of us here at Octoberpod will be richly rewarded by the thought that we've haunted your house pleasantly. Good night, and as always, stay spooky, mes amis.